Call to order this meeting, Board of Supervisors, May the 4th of 2021 here at 7 p.m. in the general courtroom. First item of business, if it is okay with the board, I'd like to move the secondary 6-year plan to the top of the agenda for the sake that Mr. Robert gets down to Charlotte Courthouse, at a reasonable hour. With no objections, Robert, if you could come up and go ahead and begin where we're at. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Tonight, I'd like to present the FY 22-20 through 27 Nelson County Secondary Road Construction Program. I think everyone on the board received a draft copy. That draft has not changed with the exception of our prioritization of unpaved roads from our last work session. That information was not available when this original draft was done. But what you have in front of you is the same draft, but if you look on page 3 for FY 24, that'll be line 9 and line 10 and line 11. You see in the comment section the priority of and projects that we prioritized at our work session last month.
Sure.
And if you'll notice, we prioritized eight projects during our work session, and the number one priority was Campbell's Mountain.
Yep.
And anyway, that was a mistake on my part. That the existing project in the 6-year plan that covers Campbell's Mountain completes that route. Somehow we got off on our mileage. So the project that is currently in the 6-year plan completes all of Campbell's Mountain. So which is a good thing. It gives us more to work with than other places. Now, I have extra copies here. If anybody in the audience would like a copy, be glad to give you one. This is a draft until it's approved.
I'll be glad to add another road with Campbell Mountain. Please.
How big? The good news is we can always change this. We're never married to it until they obviously put money to it.
And I'll just start at the beginning of the plan on page 1 and just bring you up to date on where we're at. Because you'll recognize some projects in here that have already, that have been completed, but we haven't closed them out financially. If you look on page 1, 1 of 4 has our allocations projected throughout the next 6 years. They're holding pretty steady. Little increase in the latter years of the plan, but that really doesn't mean a whole lot right now because that's 5 or 6 years out. It could change. But if you look at on page 2 of 4, Carter Hill Road, that road has been completed. We completed construction on that, and we are awaiting financial closure on that. Route 612 Bottoms Lane, that road has been reconstructed and hard surfaced, and we're waiting on financial closure for that. Route 623 Shields Gap, the initial construction of that road has been completed, but we found a discrepancy in where our interstate maintenance is located at. So there's a little more additional work to do up there that we're working on now and getting that cleared environmentally so we can start finish that project. I think it's about 300 or 400 more feet that we need to build. And that would get us up to where the property is split up there. At some point in time, our sign got moved and it's too short. It's not in the right place. And if you go up there and look where the entrances fork off to the different properties, it makes sense where the right measurement is, makes sense. That's the interstate maintenance. So we're working on that. High Peak Road, It's a project that's fully funded. I anticipate us starting on that very soon. It is ready to construct. We just didn't get to it last year, but we will be starting on that very soon, and looking forward to completion of that. The next project is another mile section of Cedar Creek, and that is fully funded. It was fully funded last year in FY21. We are planning to start on that just as soon as possible. And then our next project, Wilson Road, there was some thought of delaying this until after the bridge was constructed, but and given it some additional thought, the bridge construction is going to be relatively central, located on the end closest to 653. And I don't think it's going to have a major impact on the rest of the road. Yes, we may have to do a little touch it up after the bridge is built, but I don't see that being a major issue. So we will proceed with that one also. And then if you turn to page three or four, you'll see the final section of Campbell's Mountain Road in I guess that'll be FY22 next year. And then you see Norfolk Road, Route 687, that will follow that. And that was what was in the previous plan, FY21. And then if you look on line 9, you'll see a balance of Nelson County Rural Rustic funds. And here you'll see it in FY24, we are looking to complete Jacks Hill. We're looking to complete Cedar Creek. Then in FY25, that'd be line 10, 2.10. That's fiscal year 25. We're looking to do Ball Mountain, Route 643, Route 648 Whippoorwill, Route 765 Honeysuckle Road, and Route 674 Cow Hollow, and start partially fund Route 623 Davis Creek in FY25. And then in FY26, we see the remainder of Davis Creek being funded in FY26. So if that said, we don't have all the funding in FY26 program or 27 program, but we maxed out and were able to get all of the priorities that you all set at our work session into the plan. So sometime in next year, when we do our work session, we'll need to come up with we'll need to finish prioritizing and add anything else you want to the list and prioritize it.
Sure.
This is the draft of the 6-year plan. Okay. You also have a rural rustic priority list, and this is the list that we worked off on our work session. And if you look on that list, you'll see priorities from 1 to 7. And as I said, that's as far as we prioritized in our work session. So these roads below it, those will be roads we could consider doing additional prioritization, say next time this year. Or if you have constituents that, bring you requests, we can add them to this list and we can include those in the priority, in how you want to prioritize it. But this list right here is it gives us a list that we can pull off of that has your input as well as public input on what goes into the plan. And that is what this list is for. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has about the plan or what roads on the unpaved road priority list.
So typically speaking, obviously this is still, even though we're accepting this today, it's still a living document. Some adjustments can be made.
It's always a living document. I mean, really, when you get right down to it, it's called a 6-year plan.
Yeah.
But really, the only thing you're approving is the first year.
Yeah, right.
Because we're going to do all this again next year.
Yep, right.
with everything that's in FY '23. So really, all you're doing is approving the first year of the 6-year plan. But it does, but setting the priority is important because it gives us a plan to work to and helps us make adjustments along the way to meet the needs. So you're exactly right.
But when it gets on here, it pretty much,
Let's go.
When it hits this plan, I mean, I know, and this board has been very faithful to those folks who have made the trip up here, say 3 years ago, to make requests. And I admire you for not changing priorities once they hit this plan, because that would be tough on a constituent who thought that project was in there, their road was in there, and you wouldn't want to do that. I know you all wouldn't do that because you make that commitment and you stick to it, and I admire you for that.
Another quick question. Will the upcoming stimulus potentially impact or potentially expand on rural rustic projects that you're aware of yet? The infrastructure bill?
I don't look forward to having a major impact because that money will be federal money.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't trickle.
none of these unpaved roads are federal aid highway.
Okay.
The only way it could have some impact to free up state dollars to go on unpaved roads.
Right.
State dollars. It could replace, that stimulus could replace state dollars in other areas that could be channeled to unpaved road projects.
Certainly.
Could be.
Sure.
sort of like the lottery money, it's all going to the schools. But
Mr.
yet they
Barnes,
took it at the bottom and funded everything else.
I don't have any comment on that whatsoever.
Good
Yeah.
answer.
Great. Any further questions for Robert? That being said, if you have a seat, we'll open the public hearing.
Okay.
I got something for you afterwards.
Great. Open the public hearing for FY '22 through FY '27 secondary 6-year plan, R 2021-26. For those who have signed up, I will read your name. There will be a 3-minute time limit. There's only 2 of you.
That's for the budget,
Oh.
that's not for the 6-year plan.
I believe you were. Did you want to speak today? If you could just come on up. Yes, ma'am.
That's okay, if I could.
Yeah, secondary 6, yeah. Okay.
Oh, that, yeah, there you go.
Hi, my name is Marjorie Feiner, and I live in Woods Mill. And we have, in our neighborhood, 2.5 miles of unpaved, privately owned roads. We each have right-of-way through our property. And we have a homeowners association of which I am the president, the only purpose is road maintenance. When I moved into the neighborhood 20 years ago, there were maybe 5 families that lived in there. And there are now 20, and there will probably be more. And it is becoming beyond our capacity to keep up with that road system. I don't think it's safe. I think if there were fire trucks, police trucks, ambulances, they're gonna have a hard time at times getting in and out of there. Old Ridge Road, which is the main road that comes in from the Barry's Bar to the end, is 1.4 miles. And that road has to be used by everybody, regardless of where they live. They're all coming in the same way. It's the only entrance into that property. So we just spent $7,000 to improve 1,400 feet of that road. And I'm asking the county for help. That's what I'm here for. I would love to be included in this 6-year plan, if that's at all possible. You're shaking your head. That's not good. But that's what we would like to figure out a way. Just before the meeting, Robert mentioned something about revenue sharing. That would work for us, I think, if we could do something like that. we do the best we can with resources that we have, and it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, and so I understand that, and this is not to interact too much because that's not the purpose of a public hearing, but if you could have the opportunity to speak with Robert after the end of this, you guys could get some good context in there of what revenue sharing is, how the details are. It's a good bit of information. It's a lot of work. The county doesn't necessarily take that on immediately. There's some pieces that the county has to participate in. Robert will apprise you of what that is, because it's going to be the duty of your association to kind of front the effort on there, and we help assist you where we can
Okay.
in the coordination with the state. So,
I have a comment on that.
yes, sir, Mr. Robert.
Please.
That would be considered a rural addition, and because it's privately owned, and it's called a rural addition to take another road into the highway system.
Can I tell you one thing? It used to be part of the state system. It actually has a number. It's Route 700. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
That's
but-
VDOT.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, that, and the requirements to do that is you have to put the road up to state specs, which is, what is it, $400,000 a mile now?
It could be that much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Would you like to speak, sir? It's the same thing? All right, with that being, Dr. Eagle, you put your name on the 6-year, but I know you mean the budget, right? Got it. With that being said, is there anybody else who wishes to speak in regards to the secondary 6-year plan? Hearing nothing, I close the public hearing. It's closed. At this time, we are looking to do action on the FY22 through FY27 secondary 6-year plan, R 2021-26. What is the pleasure of the board? Preferably looking for a motion to approve as presented.
I'll move that we approve the R 2021-26 fiscal year 22-27 secondary 6-year plan as presented.
We have a motion for Mr. Parr to approve as, we can go to discussion after we get a second.
Just explain it to me, will you?
So this particular plan here, this one right here, this packet, this piece of paper.
Okay.
So we just made a motion to approve it as presented. So you remember that list of roads that's over here on the resolution? The very last page? Now, this can change, Skip. It's not necessarily married, but we try to keep it as consistent as we can. And as Mr. Robert had mentioned, we're just basically essentially
We're just talking about the roads.
roads. We're not doing budget.
Excuse me, I
So let's
go there
move.
with people and I got somewhat confused, all right.
Can we get a second to approve?
I second.
Skip Barton seconds. Grace, if you could go with the roll.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. Great, so that is approved. If you all could make an opportunity to follow Mr. Robert and get some info, that would be great. Robert, have a safe drive down to Charlotte County.
Robert, I got
Thank you.
something else for you. Yeah. Well, we'll talk.
He's leaving.
Thank you, sir.
No, I got a call today from the fire department in Akron.
There you go,
And I don't
Kenny.
know
She needs
who
time
to
to
go
get set
to
up anyway.
first.
Yeah.
The state police use that for a truck checking stations. And it's turned the road all to pieces. Huh? No, look at the fire help where they come in and check trucks. Y'all built that one down there and it never did work because they had a wreck every time they went down. But they were looking for something, they don't expect, anybody to do it all, but they were willing to, if they're gonna continue to do it, then they expect some help, because the lower end of that driveway where they pull in there of the parking lot and the entrance is getting in real bad shape. So I'm going way up the ladder on state police, but just want to mention you first.
No, we're not. I will start that. Hey, I'll let you 3 hour drive ahead of me. Seriously, I got you.
Right, y'all don't have to be on doing this right. Y'all can behave on.
No.
Come on.
We're not.
Nobody's here and all the budget.
Just Dr. Eagle wants to talk
Well,
at the end. All right.
All right, thank you, Robert, again. Moving forward onto our next item of business, we have a public hearing for proposed FY 21 through 22 county budget, all funds. As a, informational point, today is just a public hearing. The board will be taking no actions. We will only be taking the comments from the public. So with that being said, we only have one particular person signed up, but if you're okay with Candy doing a presentation first, is that all right with you? That'd be great. Candy, go ahead and take it away.
All right, good evening. As Mr. Rutherford said, this is just a public hearing tonight, and there's a 7-day waiting period before any action can be taken on the budget. All right, so this is for fiscal year 2021-22, from July 1st, 21 to June 30th, 2022. Our tax year 2021 tax rates have remained the same. There's no change. All tax rates are levied for $100 of assessed value. Real estate mobile home tax rate is 72 cents. Personal property tax rate is $3.45. Machinery and tools is $1.25. The county utilizes a fund accounting system for tracking budgetary and financial activity. The board is considering proposed budgets for each of the 7 funds denoted on the screen, and we will briefly overview the 2 largest funds, which is the general fund and the school fund. Compared to the current budget year as amended through March of 21, the proposed general fund budget reflects a decrease of $170,509, which is a negative 0.40% decrease. The budgeted revenues and expenditures are balanced at $42,090,576 for FY 22. We'll start by looking at the FY 22 proposed revenues totaling $42,090,576. So this graph shows the FY 22 proposed revenues by major category. Local revenue consisting of general property taxes and other local taxes make up 76.8% of the overall budgeted revenue. Our total anticipated local revenues are $32,305,943. State revenues account for 10% at $4,210,223, and federal revenues are 9.7% of the total budget at $4,087,851. And that includes anticipated American Rescue Plan Act funding of $2.9 million. Our non-revenue receipts of $275,777 include a transfer into the general fund of reassessment set-aside fund, and also a $1.2 million year-ending balance, which is anticipated FY 21 revenues over FY 21 expenditures. Those together are 3.5% of total revenue. FY 22 local revenue makes up about 76.8% of the total general fund budget at $32.3 million. The primary source of local revenue is general property taxes, which account for 61% of all local revenue. Increases of $715,180 in general property taxes and $164,765 in other local revenue are offset by decreases of $225,826 in other local revenue. Some significant local revenue factors are shown on the screen. In terms of general property taxes, real estate taxes shown here do not include any adjustment for changes in values that may result from the 2022 reassessment effective January 2022. The FY 22 tax collection is calculated using half of the 2021 tax levy and half of the 2022 estimated tax levy, and a collection rate of 99.48% is then applied. The per penny tax rate equivalent of the FY 22 estimated tax levy is $250,322. The increase in public service taxes shown here is likely attributable to the Central Virginia Electric Co-op Firefly broadband build out in the county. Personal property taxes are increasing due to increased NADA values of used vehicles and potentially an increase in taxes related to large trucks and heavy equipment that are classified as personal property within the general fund budget. Additionally, local sales and use taxes are up in part due to a suspected increase in internet sales due to the pandemic and an increase in overall purchases due to travel limitations and economic stimulus payments. Oops, go back. In terms of the other local revenue, recordation taxes have been increasing due to the favorable interest rate climate that has facilitated an increase in borrowing. Meals and lodging taxes are anticipated to increase due to anticipated increases in lodging tax collections and meals tax revenue returning to a more normal level. These increases are offset by expected declines in permit fees, court fines and forfeitures, and interest on investments. State revenue makes up about 10% of the total general fund budget in FY22. The FY22 estimate reflects a decrease partially due to the completion of VDOT reimbursements for the Blue Ridge Tunnel grant and other state grants received in FY21 that will likely be received in FY22 but not yet included in the budget. These funds will be appropriated as awarded or received throughout the fiscal year. State reimbursements of shared local expenses for constitutional offices reflect the state share of a 5% salary increase for those offices and an increase in the state share of public assistance and welfare funding for Title IV-E, which is locally administered foster care programs. Federal revenue makes up about 9.7% of the total general fund budget. Generally, these federal sources include social services funding, Children's Services Act funding, payment in lieu of taxes relative to national forest land located in Nelson County, and that comes from the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, and other various federal grants. The increase reflected here is due to an increase in federal support of Title IV-E locally administered foster care programs and COVID-19 Federal American Rescue Act funding of $2.9 million expected to be received in FY22. The U.S. Treasury guidance is forthcoming regarding eligible expenditures related to these funds, which may carry over into FY23. Local, state, and federal revenues and non-revenue sources together with prior year ending balance make up all the projected revenues supporting the FY22 proposed expenditures. FY22 non-revenue sources include $20,000 in anticipated insurance recoveries and a transfer into the general fund of $255,000 in reassessment set-aside funds. The 2022 general reassessment is in process and is expected to conclude by December 31st, 2021. Consideration of resulting values and equalization of the real estate tax rate will occur thereafter, and any change in tax rate will be effective for the 2022 tax year. The year-ending fund balance for FY22 includes carryover of anticipated FY21 revenues that exceed FY21 expenditures in the amount of $1,210,782. These funds are best used for one-time expenditures such as capital outlay items. And all sources of revenue total the total budget of $42,090,576. As with the revenue side, our FY22 proposed expenditures equal the same amount at $42,090,576. Compared to the current year budget as amended through March of 2021, the proposed general fund budget reflects a decrease of $170,508, which is a 0.40% decrease. Total FY22 expenditures equal revenues, and in looking at how revenue dollars are spent, this graph shows the major categories of expenditures as a percentage of total budget. The largest category of expenditures shown is education at 41.9%, which equates to about $17.6 million, including debt of $1.8 million and school resource officer reserve funding of $207,132. Following the school division, departmental operations overall, including debt, will cost around $7 million, or about 16.7% of the budget. This includes general government and judicial administration, Public Works, Parks and Recreation, and Community Development, including debt. Public Safety, including debt, is 15.5% or $6.5 million, with Health and Welfare and Agency and non-departmental being 10% and 9.9% respectively. Non-departmental includes the 2021 anticipated COVID-19 American Rescue Plan funding of $2.9 million in an expenditure line within that department. Capital outlay is expected to be $789,386, or 1.9% of the budget, and will be covered by the FY22 year-ending balance of $1.2 million. The budget also includes refunds and unallocated contingency reserves of $1.6 million. Additionally, the school resource officer reserve of $207,132 is maintained in FY22, shown here as part of the school division funding. Some expenditure highlights for the FY22 budget related to personnel are a 5% salary and benefit adjustment, 3.7% increase in health insurance premiums. Some new positions are included, including a full-time buildings and grounds position, full-time solid waste transfer station scale house operator position, part-time social media specialist for tourism and economic development, and a full-time library position, which was included in the library's budget request. Also included are 4 full-time school resource officers, which are maintained, including the state SRO-funded grant position. Expenditure highlights related to public safety and emergency services are as shown. The budget does not include funding for police vehicles and equipment or any new vehicles at this time. Contingency funding may cover these costs as the budget is amended. It does include the remaining 80% funding to support the purchase of 1 tanker for the Montebello Volunteer Fire Department. Additionally, regional jail cost increases are due to higher utilization. The jail uses a 5-year average prisoner population to help smooth out annual increases. However, with annual utilization on the rise, average annual costs will also rise over time. This budget also includes upgrades to the emergency communication system and the ECC itself, plus additional funding for the local EMS council. Other highlights to note, the budget also includes level funding of most agency contributions, with no new agency contributions included. Also included are miscellaneous capital outlay items as noted, and unallocated contingency reserves of $1.4 million, with $613,713 being for recurring revenue and $812,856 being non-recurring revenue. Non-recurring contingency funds are best used for one-time expenditures. However, recurring contingency funds can be used for one-time expenditures without impacting future operations. All right, the next largest fund to be discussed tonight is the school fund at $27,487,335. The FY21 school fund budget as amended through March 2021 and based upon an enrollment of 1,589 students compared to the FY22 advertised budget based on an enrollment of 1,507 students reflects an overall increase of $224,522 or 0.82%. This is the operations budget only, excludes capital debt and SRO funding, and does not include anticipated COVID-19 American Rescue Act funding. In terms of school funding revenue, in addition to local operational funding of $15.8 million, the school division also receives revenues from other sources such as state, federal, and other, which is comprised of reimbursements for field trips, dual enrollment, telecommunications, rebates, etc. The school division will also receive estimated K-12 funding from the COVID-19 American Rescue Act of $3.6 million, which may or may not include $721,446 for learning loss. We're just not sure if that's included in the $3.6 million or if it's in addition to. As noted previously, one of the largest components of the general fund budget is the local contribution to the schools, including debt. About 55% of local funds within the general fund budget are allocated to the school division, and it is 42% of the total general fund budget. Local contributions to school operations and school nursing programs for FY '22 is presently funded at $206,800 more than in FY '21, as was requested by the school division. 4 school resource officers are funded at the same level as in FY '21 within the general fund budget. Also in FY '21, $500,350 was reserved for school capital, with almost all of the funds being expended. Additionally, the board authorized the transfer of FY '20 school division year-ending balance of $441,546 to the school capital fund for their use. The county also funds $1.8 million in school-related debt. Given the total contribution, not including debt, approximately 88.8% or 63.9 cents out of every 72 cents in real estate tax rate supports the schools. When you include the debt, this percentage increases to 99% or 71 cents out of every 72 cents in real estate tax rate collected. Throughout the year, as shown, the board considers requests for additional funding for school-related needs as shown here. Let's see. Local composite index is the state's formula for determining a locality's ability to pay. The higher the index, the lower the amount of funds received from the state. Nelson's LCI is high primarily due to the fact that total real property values unadjusted for the county's land use program are used in the calculation, which overstates the county's potential real property tax revenue and therefore the county's ability to pay. Nelson County schools are well funded. Operational funding for schools, including the nursing program, is proposed at $15,801,622. For student enrollment of 1,507, this funding exceeds the required Virginia Department of Education's required local effort funding of $7.9 million by almost $7.8 million, which equates to 31.6 cents in the real estate taxes. Board of Supervisors provides local contribution to the school division. However, the school board and administration decide how to budget and spend those funds. This slide shows school funding expenditures by major category for instruction, administration, transportation, maintenance, food services, debt service, technology, and a fund transfer for a total of $27,487,335. And then to summarize by fund, all of the funds that make up the county budget are denoted here, totaling about $74 million. We have the general fund at $42 million, the school fund at $27 million, textbook fund $531,000, cafeteria fund $267,000, capital fund $705,000, Piney River Water Sewer Fund $146,000, and the debt service fund at $3.1 million, totaling $74,371,696. And that concludes the presentation.
Great. Candy, you did a great job. That was a wonderful presentation. It was one of the more clear ones we've had, and some good time that have you doing this now. At this time, is there any particular question, I guess?
I have a question, small thing. When we were having our discussions, and we're noting the fact that the $179,000 increase in money for jails, there was a group called Offenders Aid and Restoration that asked for an increase of $4,000 to make it $8,000. And we seem to agree to that, but I don't see that on the.
That would be included in the non-departmental budget item on the synopsis sheet. But if you look at the budget expenditure detail in
So
the
the money's still
non-departmental
there.
section, it's there. It's listed individually there. Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you.
Moving forward, let's go ahead and into our public hearing. So at that, I open the public hearing for FY 21 to 22 county budget, all our funds. We currently only have one person signed up, the Dr. Eagle. If you could come up.
Good evening. Martha Eagle, Division Superintendent. It has been a while since I've seen you guys up here. I know you missed me. Good evening, Mr. Carter, board members, Ms. McGarry. I appreciate the time, and I just want to say thank you. That's the main reflection in my comments this evening. So as you can imagine, this past year has been extraordinary as the school division has faced many challenges. I stood here last year during the public hearing and spoke of the worry we had for the many unknowns facing the new school year. I asked for assurance from you as a board that you would partner with us as we planned to work through all of the forthcoming changes and continue to provide the best possible education for the restrictions and limitations would allow. And I am very thankful for your continued support. I am so very proud of our teachers, our administrators, and our support staff who have all worked tirelessly through this past year in so many new and unique ways. We have all experienced professional and personal challenges from the pandemic crisis, but as an educational team, we maintained our vision of providing our students with the best opportunities possible. I noted last year that we would need your help to get through this crisis should the worst case scenario come to fruition with fewer students and lower state funding. Although we did not experience but a slight drop in both enrollment and state funding over this past year, it was not an unbearable decrease as we continue to adjust and readjust our finances throughout the school year. As in previous years, we remain fiscally responsible and look to effectively and efficiently manage our resources. I stand here this evening with a grateful heart and to say thank you on behalf of the school division, our school board, and our staff for providing the funding last year and for also partnering with us this year to re-envision our capital improvement planning process moving forward. I believe we have made great strides to build a stronger bond between our boards, and I look forward to continuing this. I definitely want to say thank you for the SROs and that continued funding, and of course for the nurses. And so we thank you for the support for the proposed division operational budget for the FY 21-22 school year. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Eagle. All right. We have nobody else on the list. Claire, would you like to say anything? No? Anybody else like to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I close the public hearing. So at this time, there is no action we are allowed to take by the state as the approval or disapproval of this budget. Those actions will be taking place at 7 p.m. next Tuesday, correct? Yeah. And is it 7 or 6:30?
7.
7. Well, that'd be exactly 7 days.
I was gonna start at 2.
2, is that 2? Okay, at 2. So that is when the discussion of the budget and adjustments take place. With that being said, the only action that I'm aware of that we would need, is there any other business that may be presented at this time? Hearing none, we need to continue this meeting, correct, Steve?
No.
Or adjourn?
That's your next scheduled meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're just gonna okay. Motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second from Mr. Harvey. Can we get the roll?
Barton? Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes. Thank you all, staff. Great job.
Thank you.
All right, safe drive, man.
Yes, sir.
Have a good trip.
Thanks.
Raise a hug for me.
Where are you going?
Visit